1 week from Election Day. We're happy you've elected to spend 10 minutes with our show. I'm Carl Azus, and today's Down the Middle coverage begins with a look at where things stand when it comes to the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Most recent polls, when organizations ask likely voters whom they're planning to vote for, indicate that Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is leading incumbent Republican President Donald Trump. Polls do not guarantee a winner. For one thing, some people who say they support a certain candidate may wind up voting for the other one, or may not turn out to vote. For another, American voters don't directly choose the president. That's up to the Electoral College. Here's a look at how things went in the last presidential election in 2016. Most polls showed Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton leading Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. There were more than 128 million votes cast in that election. More than 65,853,000 were in favor of former Secretary of State Clinton. More than 62,984,000 were in favor of businessman and TV personality Trump. But it's electoral votes that count. A candidate needs at least 270 of those to win the White House, and Trump won the presidency with 306 electoral votes, while Clinton won 232 electoral votes. Incumbent President Trump would like to see a scenario like this again in 2020. Former Vice President Biden would like to see the results flipped. One thing we should point out this time around is that Biden's lead in most polls is greater than Clinton's was 4 years ago. But now, like then, most polls also indicate the race is getting closer as Election Day does. As far as early voting goes, whether it's done by mail or in person, this year has surpassed the number of early votes cast in 2016, according to an election data company. It estimates there have been 58.7 million early votes cast this year. There were roughly 58.3 million in 2016. But this year's estimate came 9 days before Election Day, when there was still a lot of early voting expected. Several states do not require these votes to be received and counted by November 3rd, so it's possible we won't know the outcome of the election on election night itself. Last night, meanwhile, there was a lot of attention on the U.S. Senate. Lawmakers there were expected to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court. President Trump nominated Judge Barrett to the bench following the death of Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg last month. There were strong political disagreements concerning the nomination. Democrats and Republicans each want a president from their own party to fill vacancies on the Supreme Court. The reason is because Democrats tend to choose more liberal justices, while Republicans tend to choose more conservative ones. Democrats wanted to wait until after the election to move forward on the vacancy in the hopes that they'd win more political power on November 3rd. Republicans wanted to move forward without delay on the nomination because their party controls both the Senate and the White House. Almost all of the Senate's 53 Republicans said they planned to vote in favor of Judge Barrett. That's why she was expected to win confirmation on Monday night. 10-second trivia. Which of these spacecraft has traveled the farthest? Command Module Columbia, Curiosity Rover, New Horizons, or Voyager 1? No man-made object has traveled farther from Earth than NASA's Voyager 1. We're going to spend a few minutes in space now before parachuting back down to Earth. There's a type of sail that's currently orbiting our planet. It's a $7 million mission paid for by private citizens, companies, and foundations, and it's expected to fall toward the Earth and burn up in our atmosphere sometime next year. But in the meantime, in between time, one thing it's helped scientists understand is that traveling through space is possible when the main power source is the sun and the sails it uses are thinner than a human hair.
I'm Bill Nye. I'm introducing myself. I'm Bill Nye. Now I'm the CEO of the Planetary Society, the world's largest independent space interest organization. We had this dream to fly a solar sail spacecraft, and so we did. While we're sitting here enjoying ourselves, we have our own spacecraft flying overhead from time to time, every 100 minutes or so. The thing is still flying, and The volunteers who worked it out, the software, mechanical engineers, and these people have automated its tacking. It's just like tacking a sailboat. People now are all excited about going to Mars. Well, in order to do that successfully, you're almost certainly going to have to assemble things in space. And now, because it's just not practical to build a rocket big enough to lift everything up at once. However, there is a proposal to make this crazy wire sail. So instead of reflective sails, there'd be these super thin wires that would pick up essentially microwaves from the sun, and they would give it a push. If you want to go to another solar system, if you want to go to another star, a solar sail spacecraft is the only practical idea anybody has. The longest journey starts with a single step. People are thinking about it. The more we learn about light, energy, the better we are. The more we learn about that area above the atmosphere where we're able to live, where it's dense enough to have weather and us, and deep space, this exospheric area, that's also of great value scientifically. When we talk about energy, we're really talking about electricity. Electricity is magical. You can do this, electronic interview, or you can make toast. You can do any of these things. If we can engage people around the world and get all to understand that we are all in this together. Earth is where we're from. This is where we're perfectly suited to live. This is our home. If we can get everybody engaged in that, we can change the world.
In World War II, aviators wore their parachutes harnessed to their backs and sat on them as seat cushions. At least one of these became a wedding dress, this wedding dress, and not just because it was hard to get silk in 1945. George Breit was flying for the U.S. Army when his plane was hit by enemy fire. His parachute literally saved his hide by keeping the bullets from his skin, so he brought the chute home filled with holes and gave it to his bride-to-be. She removed the Army-Navy lettering and skillfully sewed the chute into a wedding dress, and their children recently donated it to a museum in New York. Don't know if their wedding was perfect, but man, it was smooth as silk. Was that the fabric of their lives? They wove a love story for the ages, stitched together more than 60 years of marriage, blessed by a dress that made for one happy landing. I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10. There is one way to get a mention on our show, and Caesar Rodney High School knows it. They subscribed and left a comment on the most recent show at our YouTube channel, so shout out to our viewers in Camden, Delaware.